Welcome to another weekly Forex forecast, traders. Just want to give a quick shout out to some of the Discord members who had a fantastic trading week catching these amazing supply and demand zone entry trades that you're seeing on the screen now. So with that being said, let's get right into this week's analysis with the DXY. Remember, we are currently reacting off of weekly demand. Weekly demand is in control right now, and it is an overall monthly demand zone from these dotted lines to the other dotted lines. So that is an overall monthly demand zone. I've been saying it. There is an even better weekly demand down at 96.87 on the DXY. So it is possible we retrace down to this weekly demand before getting that big rally. But I am expecting a decent rally. At least I'm going to guess up to the 103, 104 areas. I know some people are going to disagree, and that's fine. That's what makes a market. Let's see who's right. I'm not saying we're going to go up to here from there. What I am saying is it is possible we get a pullback down to that weekly demand before rallying up to that kind of drop-based drop area up there. But overall, we have a higher time frame monthly demand in control, and that is why I am remaining semi-bullish on the DXY. Now, on the 4-hour chart, we had a 4-hour upward trend line from over here. We created a new downward trend line here, and that downward trend line, it was actually removed. That downward trend line was removed by, there's really no demand that I'm seeing here that I would call removed. I'm just saying. On this 4-hour chart though, here you can see we had this demand zone. I was talking about this in last week's Forex forecast. That demand was removed by this area of supply, and that was actually a supply zone that I had on my charts that we were talking about in the daily market breakdown video, which you can see on the screen right now. So this supply is coming back in for a second test. Now, I don't really like second tests, right? This supply was created. I was saying, hey guys, we could definitely see a move off the supply zone. You definitely want to be careful getting in long on the dollar. On whatever dollar pairs you're trading, you want to be careful getting in long at this 4-hour area of supply. And obviously that worked out because price pushed down so far that we actually broke the structure low there as well. But now, as we come up for a second test, I'm not putting a lot of weight on the zone, especially since we've tested it so deep already. I am actually expecting this zone to break. Now, what we could see take place, the reason I'm thinking it's going to break is, again, because the zone is tested already and the fact that we have a higher time frame demand zone in control on the higher time frames. Now, what we could see take place first is a pullback down to this 1-hour demand before we end up breaking it. This demand zone is located at 98.97 on the 1-hour chart. It is definitely a pretty good rally area of demand that removed this downward trend line. So we definitely could see a pullback down to this demand zone first before we get that rally out first. And let's say we don't break that supply in the 4-hour chart, it respects it, and we break this demand zone, okay, then I will accept that I am kind of wrong. And then what we could wait for there is that a downward trend line there, and then, okay, look, I was wrong. Price looks like it's going to continue to go down. So we're going to be monitoring the trends here and monitoring some of the zones that I pointed out on the US dollar. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the Euro US dollar. We are pulling back into this tested weekly supply for the second time. It was barely tested, as in we didn't even close in here. You can see we wicked in basically 55% of the way in. So I am putting a little weight on the supply zone. It's definitely not an area where I'm like, oh, we're going to get such a big retracement. However, we definitely, since we barely tested it, we could maybe hesitate around here before we end up breaking it. So this weekly supply could cause the euro to kind of base out before rallying up. Just want to kind of point that out for some of you swing traders out there. Now, what we will be monitoring as well is this daily time frame. We want to see, can we break this high, which will then create a new upward trend line to attach to this point here, which would be a very good looking upward trend line. Right now, that's kind of the big question is, okay, we had an upward trend line here. That trend line was removed. Now, are we going to continue this trend line? Are we going to get held up by that high? Even if we do, we have a good demand zone down below. We definitely could see a move off of as well. But that's what I'm going to be waiting for. As far as what I'm going to be watching on the dollar, on the euro on the daily chart, is this high to see if we can create an upward trend on the daily chart, because right now we are just sideways. Yes, momentum is up, but the trend is sideways. So that's what I'm going to be monitoring the daily chart, that high, and also this demand zone down below right before this liquidity trap as well. I know this could take a while to play out. I'm just saying, every week I gotta say, what I'm going to be watching. As far as the 4-hour chart goes, we technically had a new upward trend line here that was removed. I'm just gonna go ahead and just kind of make this a little bit lighter, just because I don't want it to be prominent on our screen, because what I'm looking at is pretty much this upward trend line here. That is kind of the main one here. To me, this was kind of just a temporary one. I would prefer to still call this an upward trend. So what I will say is, as long as this trend line's holding all the way down here, you could be looking for longs on a 15-minute time frame. Even if we get a pullback down to this demand zone, I still think it's good at 112 to look for potential longs at that demand zone. If you guys are enjoying this video so far, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. If you are new to the channel, I do these forecasts for free every single Saturday. Much appreciated. So this demand zone is decent on the 4-hour chart. I do still much prefer the one lower at 111 before all this liquidity. So that's like my dream pullback, but we're kind of needing to get that pullback now. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying that's, as a swing trader, that's what I'm personally waiting for on the euro on the 4-hour chart. But in the meantime, as long as this trend line's holding, you could justify looking for longs. I don't love that we've lost momentum. Even on the 1-hour chart, we're clearly losing momentum here. I don't call this trend line removed just yet. I'm not going to get into detail in this video on that. I'm not calling it removed. However, this is definitely a weak sign. We definitely could see a price push down here on the euro. So it's going to be interesting to watch. In the meantime, yeah, you could be continuing to look for longs, but if we really start to break this 1-hour trend to the downside, then it might be best to kind of hold off and wait for some of these zones down below that I was pointing out for potential long trades. Alrighty, onto the forecast for gold. So upset. I really was hoping for that pullback down to that weekly demand zone. Would have been a great dip buying opportunity to even buy some precious metals. And it still is. I still think it's a very good demand zone. It is possible we still retrace down to that demand zone. Imagine what the news is going to be saying if gold drops this much. They're going to be, oh, gold is awful. Never buy gold. It's going to be a fantastic dip buying opportunity, in my opinion. I actually called the low down here. If you go back and watch some of my videos back in 2023, I've had the zone on my charts with this liquidity trap the entire time when price was up here. So I called that trade out, and I mean, the results are absolutely insane. So that's why I'm waiting for that zone here to wait for another amazing pullback. On the daily chart, we did remove this downward trend here on the daily time frame. Not really any demand here that I call demand, but it is definitely a bullish sign. Okay, yes, Friday, red candle on gold, definitely looking weak. But I mean, with the break of the trend, and this overall trend, is this really that weak? Not really. To me, it just seems like maybe a temporary pullback. Is kind of what I'm hoping to see. What we need to monitor this week is, for one, this 4-hour chart here. Right now, as of right now, this trend line is removed. I'm not going, we still have another hour and 20 minutes. I record these forecasts kind of right before the market closes every Friday, just because I have a family and stuff. So I'm not trying to do this, late at night. So my apologies. We could see this zone form up here on gold. Right now, if this trend line breaks, we will actually have a little area of supply right here on gold. So if that does take place, if this trend line, if this candle closes exactly where it is right now, we will have a supply zone up here, which you could maybe look for a potential short trade off of. Or if you're bullish, which I am, I'd rather be waiting for this supply to be removed and hopefully the high as well. And then any demand zone that removes it is going to be a great dip buying opportunity. So we definitely want to be monitoring this 4-hour chart here on gold. In my opinion, I think it's definitely worth it. And over on the 1-hour chart, we actually had a beautiful reaction off this 1-hour area of supply. And a lot of you guys might be saying, Kevin, why did you draw that supply? Why didn't you draw, something up here? If I just were to draw the zone, why didn't you draw something here? That's where the real supply is at. It's right at the high, right? Well, actually, it's not, and it's common. It's a very common misconception. As you can see on the screen, this PDF that I made explains it beautifully here. We're not mapping out just the highs and lows of price, right? We are looking, going back to the chart, we are looking for a significant base and a significant drop, right? Just like we saw in that PDF, we're not just mapping out the highs and the lows. We're looking at specific candles, which is why I drew this zone and not the one up here, because there is no zone up there. That's why this was a zone. And that is the PDF that comes with the Diamond membership, 38 pages long, tons of information in there as well. So on the 1-hour chart here on gold, we have a nice 1-hour downward trend as we reacted off the supply. 1-hour downward trend line's holding. What that means is 5-minute time frame shorts are going to be good as long as the downward trend line is being respected. Where I think we could pull back into is to this fresh 1-hour demand zone down here. I don't love buying a 1-hour zone when price has taken this long to pull back into it. I would have loved to see a pullback like right here. We didn't get that, so this is kind of a tricky situation, but this zone definitely could be good for maybe a 2-to-1, a 3-to-1 move. Nothing maybe too crazy, but profit margin, as long as the downward trend line's holding, is down to that demand zone. I don't really see much stopping price here. So for now on gold, we just want to be day trading short this downward trend line on the 5-minute chart and the 1-hour chart, and be monitoring this daily time frame up here, or the 4-hour time frame as well here on XAUUSD. All right, onto the forecast for the USDJPY. We still have not targeted this liquidity on the weekly time frame. I'm still expecting to see that move take place. Not looking like we were going to get that. It actually is looking like the support level was being respected, which it can be. I'm a supply and demand trader. Supply and demand is not the same as support resistance. That's why I have that PDF, which clearly explains it in there. On the daily chart here, there's not a lot going on, right? We had 2 demand zones here. If you've been watching my forecast, both of these demand zones actually broke. None of them were really that great to begin with. Both the zones were broken, but there's just not a lot to go off of here. The demand zone down below is tested, so we don't have anything there. There is a supply zone up above in the daily chart at 149.09, and the good thing about that as well is if you look, it's kind of a liquidity trap set up here as well. So what I would really love to see at the supply is a move up to this resistance, a reaction off of it to prove there's liquidity here. All the stop losses above, potentially right into our supply zone, and see a move like that. That is what I am hoping. But for now, there's not a lot of higher time frame analysis to go off of. With supply and demand trading, we like to trade at these higher time frame supply and demand zones if possible, guys. It just definitely increases the odds of the setup working out. Now on the 4-hour chart, there wasn't a whole lot to go off of either. Okay, yeah, we did have some sort of drop-based rally here. We got a nice reaction off of it. I'll actually show you the reaction on the 1-hour chart, a trade that I pointed out to the members, but there's not a lot going on here either. Once we can break a high here, okay, then we will have a 4-hour trend to the upside. Then we could day trade long 50-minute charts, but we don't really want to do that yet with really no trend here. If we break this low, okay, then we'll have a 4-hour downward trend line. Then you could day trade short the 50-minute chart, right? We don't have that yet. We are just going sideways, so we kind of have to be a little bit patient. But we actually did catch a beautiful 1-hour demand zone trade here. Picture perfect setup, almost no drawdown. Price easily targeted that high, and this was a trade that we called out in the daily market breakdown videos. If you want to trade alongside myself and the community, join the Diamond membership for exclusive access to our daily market breakdown videos and catch trades like these. Plus, dive deep with our full-length forecast covering 26 plus markets, our interactive Sunday Zoom sessions, and personal homework to sharpen your strategy. And you'll also join our private Discord group for direct access to me and unlock a complete library of A to Z video lessons to master supply and demand trading. Don't miss out. Let's level up your trading. Links in the description down below. So like I said, beautiful trade off the zone. I was warning members, a little bit sketchy because we almost contacted it twice, but obviously it worked out great. And it was actually a reaction from a previous demand zone we had from back here that I also called out. So that's the beauty of forecasting. You can see actual evidence, not just, screenshots of P&L, which can be easily faked. So beautiful move off this demand zone. What we have now is an upward trend line indicated by that arrow. Sorry, not an upward trend line, an upward trend. So what that means is I don't mind looking for longs on a 5-minute chart. As long as we don't start to get some lower lows being formed in an opposite trend. I think looking for longs, like I said, on a 5-minute chart is going to be fine. As far as new zones go, there's really not a whole lot going on here, which is why I do the daily market breakdown videos, so you can catch the trades with me throughout the week. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the GBPUSD. We are clearly basing up here on the weekly chart. The question is, are we basing up for a drop or are we basing up for a rally? Based on the momentum, we could definitely expect a rally, and especially on the trend, we could definitely expect a rally. Another reason I'm expecting a rally rather than a drop is the fact that we have a daily trend to the upside. Obviously, yeah, I could be wrong. We could drop, and that's fine. We can definitely catch trading opportunities on the way down. I don't care where price goes. I'm just pointing out what I think could happen based on the trends that I see. We are reacting off some sort of daily supply, but it's tested once. Second test, we definitely could break it, but with the strong trend to the upside, that is why I'm expecting to see higher prices here on the GBPUSD. On the 4-hour chart, we actually have a updated trend line here that I have not updated yet, so a little bit of a live update for you guys. This trend line, and actually, it's being removed right now. We still have 1 hour and 12 minutes for this candle to close, but as of now, this trend line is actually being removed. Definitely a sign that it could be getting weaker. So a little bit tricky right now. I don't really see any supply up here, so there's really no shorting opportunities above. What I will say is I do see a nice demand zone down below at 133. I'm not saying we're going to pull back down to there, but that's kind of really my only target area for a dip buying opportunity on the pound. If you want to get in long with the overall higher time frame trends, that's really the only demand zone, I'm seeing over here on the 4-hour time frame. On the 1-hour chart, we actually broke the 1-hour demand zone and we created a 1-hour supply above. So if you're bearish, that is our supply zone short up above at 1.356. So definitely could see a move off that supply zone there. Could definitely have it on your charts. We removed an opposing demand zone and a trend line with that supply. So it could be worth having in your charts here on the GBPUSD. But since we are losing trend on the 4-hour and the 1-hour time frames, it could definitely be a sign we could be pushing down. So what we need to monitor is these supply zones here. If they get removed, that's going to be a sign of bullishness. But for now, we want to be monitoring the 4-hour demand zone and this 1-hour area of supply on the GBPUSD. All right, on to the forecast for the USDCAD. We had a beautiful reaction off this trend line here. Call it luck, that's fine. This is just how I do analysis. Maybe it was just random, whatever, but it's a nice reaction off of that trend line. We do have a demand zone sitting right below the trend line. This trend line definitely could act as liquidity with stop losses below. So we definitely could still be targeting that weekly demand at 1.357, where we could see a move off that demand zone. It is a beautiful drop-based rally demand that removes supply and a good pivot point. So I think it's a good weekly demand zone. Could be used as a profit target as well. Over here on the daily chart, we had a beautiful daily downward trend line still being respected. So definitely bearish signs here on the USDCAD. Until we can remove this trend line and get a move like that, I'm not going to be bullish on the USDCAD. I'm actually going to be remaining kind of bearish here. That's why we did take a setup on this 1-hour chart here. This is a beautiful trade. Doesn't even look like the trade worked out, but we were filled here, and a lot of our take profits were hit here. You can see a couple of the members actually got involved in this setup as well. I was practicing a 1-to-1 strategy, just kind of working on something, and my entry and my take profit was hit in a matter of like seconds, I'm pretty sure. I think it was some sort of news event, but that's a beautiful thing about swing trading. I'm not really too worried about news events with a big zone like this, right? And it's nice. Yeah, okay, sometimes it'll wick you out, but sometimes price goes and hits you take profit immediately, just like for me and the members. So that trade's worked out. I definitely would not be trading at the supply zone anymore. So at this point, what you could be waiting for is to wait for the supply to be removed. If there is a demand zone there, okay, we can get in long. But until then, I really don't see too many setups here on the USDCAD. For now, we really could be just day trading short the 15-minute chart as long as this 4-hour downward trend line is holding. So yeah, we are maybe pushing up to the trend line, so we need to monitor it to see if it gets removed. But if it doesn't, like I said, day trading shorts are going to be completely fine here on the USDCAD. And make sure you guys follow me on social media, on X, Instagram, and testing. Alrighty, on to the forecast for the AUDUSD. I'm going to show you what some bad looking charts look like. This is a weekly time frame. There's almost nothing we can use with this data. We do not have a higher time frame supply and control. We do not have a higher time frame demand and control. We have pretty much nothing. We don't even have a supply zone tool up here, and it's tested, very tested as well. So there's really nothing to go off of here. There's no trend. Momentum is questionable as well. So there's really nothing to go off of on the weekly chart, and there's nothing to go off of on the daily time frame over here as well. It's just chugging along. The price action is pretty much awful. On the 4-hour chart, we do, in theory, have an upward trend line here. So in theory, longs on a 15-minute chart are going to be fine. What I don't love about this trend line, okay, it is a trend line. Like when you really kind of zoom in here, okay, it looks really good. When we zoom out, it's kind of just a trend line in an overall, range. Okay, yeah, we have technically, okay, we did break this high, right? It's just not a great break, right? I would have liked to see a candle close above here to really indicate, okay, we're over these highs. We're over this range. To me, it kind of looks like we are just, if I just were to draw the range out here, just give me a second. If that's the overall range, okay, yeah, technically, we've broken out of this range. But if you look, to me, it kind of looks like we are still kind of married to the range. Right here, if we broke out of the range, but we are so attached to the range that we came right back into it. That's what it's looking like we are getting right now. So we definitely need to monitor this trend line, because if this trend line breaks, that's going to say, okay, this range is clearly still holding. Yeah, we peaked above it, but it just was kind of a fake out. we're clearly breaking this, or we're clearly still going to be reacting in this range. That's why we need to be monitoring this trend line. In the meantime, you could be looking for, like I said, 15-minute time frame trades long. I think are going to be completely fine, and we actually have a 1 hour trend to the upside. So for now on the Aussie, I think longs are going to be preferred, but it's got to be, like I said, on a 5-minute chart or a 15-minute chart. Those are really our only two options, and we need to monitor the trend line and the range on the 4-hour chart. On to the forecast for the USD Swiss. Beautiful weekly downtrend, recently targeted liquidity on the weekly chart. Definitely could be pushing down here. We are, quote unquote, due for a pullback. I hate saying that. We are due for a pullback, but I mean, look, supply zones being respected, downward momentum, downward trends. To me, it is looking really, really weak. We actually did catch a beautiful counter trend setup off of this demand zone here. We pretty much hit this high. I'd be looking to take profits now if anybody got in long. Anybody from my group listening to this, if you guys got in long, I'd be looking to take profits now. I got my I actually didn't get my 1-to-1 here because my take profit was here, and it was some sort of news event, spiked above my take profit, did not fill it, and I managed emotions. Right? I manage emotions. I saw that. I was kind of pissed off. My take profit was not filled. So I bumped my stop loss from where it was down here to break even, and I was stopped out at break even, unfortunately. And then price went up and obviously hit my take profit. But I managed my emotions here because I would have been pissed if price wicked above my take profit, didn't hit it because the spread came down and stopped me out for a loss. I would have been really ticked off. So I managed emotions properly, and I just put it at break even, and I just accepted if it comes down and breaks me even, whatever. It's not a loss. And I did that, and I'm fine with it. That's called managing your psychology. If you guys want more tips on that and trading psychology, check out my podcast called the Stoic Trading Psychology Podcast, available anywhere you get your podcasts. Definitely could help with that side of the trading. So we definitely could see a push up to the supply zone up here. It's a very large zone, so I'd rather be looking for confirmation on a 15-minute or even a 5-minute chart as well inside of the supply, because it's just so big. As long as the downward trend line's holding, you could be looking for shorts on a 15-minute chart. I think that's fine. And if we remove this demand zone, any supply zone there is going to be decent for potential shorts. So that is what I'd be waiting for here on the USD Swiss. Alrighty, last but not least, we are on to crude oil. So it's a very, very interesting chart. We have a overall weekly downward trend. Obviously, we can still get moves up in a weekly trend like we have seen many, many times. That is what we are getting right now, in my opinion. And we have a beautiful rally, base, drop area of supply above that we could see a move to and a move down off of. I think it's a great swing trading opportunity up above that supply at 69.04. We are clearly headed to that supply. However, we have a little bit of a potential stop before we contact that supply, and that is right at this downward trend line. We have a beautiful downward trend on the daily chart here. We definitely could hesitate around this trend line and react off of it first. So that is what we are going to be monitoring the next couple weeks on oil. If this trend line gets removed, in my opinion, that is definitely a sign we could be pushing up to that weekly supply. Like I said, if the trend line holds, then obviously doesn't look like we're going to be getting a retracement up to that area of supply. So that's what I'm going to be monitoring this week on crude oil. Another option is we have a 1 hour trend to the upside, pretty clean one. So you could have this trend line on your chart. As long as that trend line is being respected, 5-minute time frame longs are going to be completely fine. So that's what you could be doing if you were a day trader, but profit margin is limited because we have a supply zone up above at 66.27. I shouldn't say limited. It's still a decent amount of profit margin. I'm just saying we have a clear profit margin above at that 4 hour area of supply, and we actually have a nice upward trend right now. This is a clear area of resistance to me. And we have a clear supply zone above it. So what I'm really, really hoping for is a move up to this 4 hour supply and get a move off that supply. Something like that could play out very, very nicely. And so that's the supply zone I'd be looking to trade at. If you are bearish, like I said, it's kind of a liquidity trap. It is kind of an older zone, but it is a nice drop, base drop, right above a liquidity trap search. So I think it could work out great. To me, I'd risk 1% on that trade. I personally would take a loss in that trade every day. If you're bullish, we have a demand zone all the way down below at 61.07, and that is really all I'm seeing as far as zones go for longs. But like I said, if you want to look for longs as well, you definitely could be day trading long on a 5-minute chart to target the liquidity that I was just talking about on the 4 hour time frame. If you want to watch the full-length forecast and get my daily chart analysis and daily market breakdown videos, join the Diamond membership. Links are in the description down below.